This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
The trial has begun for a man accused of brutally bashing his co-worker to death on a remote Tasmanian road. Russell John Nowinski has pleaded not guilty to murdering Donald William Crowe at Interlaken in 2016.
It was on a stretch of remote road in June 2016 where a shack trip turned deadly. A fight broke out between Russell John Nowinski and Donald William Crowe as the pair were returning to Lake Sorrel from a bottle shop. Prosecutors allege Mr Nowinski bashed his co-worker, repeatedly kicking him while he was on the ground and shoved gravel in his mouth, causing asphyxiation. The Crown arguing it was a use of force the accused should have known would cause the death of 39-year-old Donald Crowe. On the opening day of the trial, the jury was told they'll hear a 000 call, where the accused told the operator, "He tried to kill me, so I've had to kill him." Defence lawyer Kim Baumler says the fight is not in dispute, but the circumstances are, urging the jury to keep an open mind and not be swayed by emotion.
The jury has been warned they'll be exposed to a number of confronting images during the trial. This afternoon they began hearing from some of the 25 witnesses expected to give evidence.
Tomorrow the jury is set to view the scene while the trial is expected to run until the end of next week. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
The Labor Party has unveiled its $63 million education policy, but its teacher injection has fallen short of union calls. The opposition is vowing to restore cuts made under the state government, with the Liberals against the promise of a school audit.
Back to school a day early for the Labor Party, today unveiling a $63 million plan to boost teacher numbers.
We are some 80-odd teachers less than we had in schools as a result of the government's actions. This will do that and more.
The promise is 89 new teachers. 50 staff will be pulled from the Education Department into school classrooms. An additional 30 professional support staff, including speech and language pathologists, psychologists and social workers. A pledge welcome but falling short for the Education Union.
We'll be really stressing that we need to have more teacher assistants in our schools so that our teachers aren't taken away from their teaching and learning, which is their core business.
Labor today standing by its position to halt the government's rollout of years 11 and 12, an immediate audit set to determine where the extensions are needed.
What we want to do is make sure that if a byproduct of the government's rollout is that we have not given children the best opportunity, that we will ensure that they get the best opportunity in those schools.
An audit is just a smokescreen for closing down years 11 and 12 schools. This is a tragedy for rural communities.
The opposition is ruling out rolling back extensions already funded, regardless of the audit outcome.
If you make decisions based on evidence, then it would be up to a school community to make that decision.
We're seeing schools very close to fantastic colleges being given 11 and 12 subjects. That can only undermine our college system.
A college system both major parties are pledging support for. Jacqueline Robson, Southern Cross News.
Tasmania's peak bodies have outlined an election wish list with just under a month until polling day. The hope is to establish an effective performance monitoring framework to hold the new government to account.
We'd like to see some genuine indicators developed in partnership with the peak bodies that are here today so that we can all work together to report those outcomes.
The peak bodies will hold a leaders forum later this month. Southern Cross News can reveal leaked data from the Royal Hobart Hospital which suggests a deterioration in the performance of the emergency department over the last year. A health policy analyst says the figures haven't been released to interfere with the election, but to highlight the issues facing frontline staff.
The Royal Hobart Hospital faced increasing pressures over 2017, dealing with the rebuild and a serious flu outbreak. Now new details reveal the extent of that pressure. Hospital staff leaking data to a health policy analyst on the emergency department's performance.
We've heard the stories, now we've got the figures. Now we can see in an organised way exactly how bad it is, and it's much worse.
The The figures suggest the number of patients spending longer than 24 hours in the ED more than doubled, topping 1,000 in 2017. Ambulance ramping has been a high-profile issue facing the hospital. The data says the percentage of ambulances ramped for more than 30 minutes has increased to 18%, a tripling of 2016's figure.
The tripling of ambulance ramping for more than half an hour in one year is plainly scandalous. That is an amazingly bad use of resources, and of course it's dangerous to patients.
GPs say that pressure is felt across the health system and they don't see a political solution.
I don't think any of us would say there's a politician or a policy out there, there are actually very few policies out there, that are going to be adequate to cope with Tasmania's health needs now and into the future.
We have demonstrated over the last 4 years that the Hodgman Liberal government values our medical professionals. That's why we've employed 350 more of them, including 255 more nurses.
The Health Department was contacted for comment. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
And late today, Devonport Mayor Steve Martin was declared eligible to replace Jackie Lambie in the Senate. Lawyers for Mr Martin argued he is the rightful replacement despite his position as Mayor. The Constitution forbids those holding an office of profit under the Crown from being elected. But the High Court ruled mayors were independent from the Commonwealth. The state opposition is accusing the Liberals of trying to bribe councils with its new Taz Water takeover election pledge. Peter Gutwin is vowing to sweeten his original deal by giving councils more profits and customers a price freeze. But not everyone is buying it.
It's the same Taz Water takeover, but the Treasurer is putting forward a new deal.
Our aim is to deliver better infrastructure quicker and at a lower price for customers. And that's exactly what this policy will do.
Under the proposed new deal, a 12-month price freeze for customers would begin once the government took over ownership from local councils. To compensate the current owners, they'd receive 50% of Taz Water's profits or $20 million, whichever is greater, every year.
We believe that the sweetened deal is good for both customers and, importantly, councils as well.
We don't think it's in the state's best interest to spend $20 million a year taking over Taz Water when we've got a crisis in the health system and a dire need to better fund our schools.
The Liberals' initial takeover plan went down the drain last November when the Upper House opposed the legislation. Now the so-called sweeter deal is proving little enticement to some.
The Legat position remains unchanged. Our members oppose the takeover by the state government.
It's a political circus. It's just more of what we've seen before. There's no plan and there's nothing to back up what they wish to do.
But Dorset's mayor says any council that doesn't support the new deal doesn't have the best interest of ratepayers at heart.
Those councils who were worried that they couldn't balance their books without the Taz Water dividend are now guaranteed that. In fact, the guarantee is better than the current Taz Water model.
If the Liberals are re-elected, the Treasurer wants to be in control of Taz Water by the 1st of January next year.
We would hope that the Upper House would respect the vote of the Tasmanian people and should we be successful, that they would allow this legislation to pass.
Water users will get their say at the ballot box next month. Monica Dadson at Southern Cross News.
A plan to develop Tasmania's longest bushwalk is pushing forward with a business case pending for the 100-kilometre Trans-Tarkine track. Conservationists are hoping the development will encourage the protection of the rainforest while showcasing its Aboriginal heritage.
We're the oldest surviving culture in the world, so it's important that we are a part of, as I said, the beginning and the expression of what that cultural landscape has for us.
Globally, we've seen places like Yellowstone that the best way to preserve some of these beautiful places, outside the World Heritage Area where different rules apply, is to have tourists who do love nature and getting outdoors to experience it.
The development is costed at $20 million and will require an environmental and heritage assessment. Police are treating a fire at a Clarendon Vale property overnight as suspicious. Crews were called to the blaze on Mockridge Road around 10 o'clock after police say a flare was thrown into the lounge room. The residence, which is owned by Mission Australia, sustained around $50,000 worth of damage. No one was home at the time and investigations are continuing. Anyone with information can contact Crime Stoppers. The world's best mountain bike riders will once again converge on Tasmania when Derby hosts round 2 of the 2019 Enduro World Series. 500 riders competed in last year's event at the old tin mining town. Organisers say because of that success, it was an easy decision for the town to once again host the only Australian round.
All that hard work in 2017 has paid off, and it was a highly regarded event then. It was widely acknowledged amongst the riders and organisers as probably the best in the world last year. So it's just common sense that it comes back to Derby.
The event is expected to bring millions of dollars into the state. The Derby round will be held from March 28 to 31 next year. The latest study of Tasmanian devils has shown the species is still declining due to the deadly devil facial tumour disease. Monitoring carried out by the Save the Tasmanian Devil program shows the marsupial is rallying in the wild but has declined by up to 80% in the last 20 years.
Devils are actually really remarkable species, and they have compensated to some extent for the very low densities by breeding younger and having more pouch young per female, but to date that hasn't been enough to fully compensate for the disease.
The research reveals breeding in young devils means they can contract the disease from the age of 1. Long-term impacts show the disease also makes them vulnerable to other threats, including bushfires and droughts. Businesses' confidence in Tasmania continues to soar, according to a new survey. The latest Census Business Index reveals small and medium businesses across the state are the most confident in Australia. It's also found perceptions of the Tasmanian economy are now the highest they've been in 10 years. Business expectations for this year are also among the most positive in the country. Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance with thanks to TasPlan, your local super fund. As we mentioned at the head of the bulletin, the Australian share market has suffered its biggest one-day fall in more than 2 years, wiping around $66 billion from its value. The ASX 200 index fell 192.9 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 78.61 US cents and 107.76 New Zealand cents.
The Burnie Football Club is officially out of the Tasmanian State League after a last-ditch call to arms for player numbers fell flat. Now, in order to save the club, the Dockers will have to rely on the NWFL accepting them into the competition.
Last night was D-Day for the Dockers after appealing to the North West Coast football community to get behind them. It didn't, and the once proud club is now staring into oblivion.
I think we all feel terrible. We've got 132 years of history on the line. Very proud history, and this snuck up on us very quickly.
With not enough player numbers to field a TSL or Mercury Cup side, Burnie joins Devonport in folding from the statewide competition, meaning the 2018 season will go ahead with just 7 teams. As for the Dockers, re-entry into the NWFL is their last hope of survival.
There's no guarantees with them. They've said that you can present your case, and which we intend to do, and we'll see how we go. But until then, we're in limbo. If we go into recess, I doubt it to get back up. So.
As for the club's best young talent, the TSL says it will work towards finding them a new home, with other clubs also on board.
If that's the point it gets to and they want to join our footy club, then we'll invest as much as possible to give those kids the best chance.
AFL Tasmania will explore the possibilities of forming a new North West Coast-based TSL side into the future, while the club's women's side will continue to play on in the TSLW.
The North West Coast has always developed elite talent, and we think it's really important for the kids that live in this area and grow up and want to play at the highest possible level that they're given that opportunity.
Coaches from the 7 clubs banding together in the wake of the news to throw their support behind what's touted as Tasmania's premier competition, despite an entire region dissolving from it.
It's the highest level that you can play in this state, give you that opportunity to get drafted. You know, we've seen it at our own club with Mackenzie Willis, Kieran Lovell and Hugh Dixon.
The access that players have to top-line coaching and great facilities is extremely important. If I had a son that was playing footy, I'd want him to play in the TSL.
But not all were quite so optimistic.
I had 2 SFL clubs ring me this week asking for players, so it's certainly not just the TSL that are struggling, it's the whole state as a whole.
The new 7-team fixture will be released in the coming weeks.
Tennis action continues at the Launceston International, with Tasmania's sole hopeful on court a short time ago. Our reporter Tom Johnson is there. And Tom, how did Harry Bouchier go today?
Well, Tom, good news here. Hobart's Harry Bouchier is through to the second round after beating New Zealand's Ruben Statham on centre court. He did it in straight sets, winning 7-5, 6-4. Bouchier will go on to play fellow Aussie Mark Polmans in the next round. Here's how today's action played out. The state's sole representative in the main draw, Harry Bouchier, brought his A-game for the local crowd. Up against 30-year-old Ruben Statham, who recently played for his native New Zealand in the Davis Cup. Bouchier started strongly, taking the first set 7-5, before breaking Statham's serve in the second set, the 22-year-old winning the gritty contest after 80 minutes on court.
I was very tight, down in a lot of service games, which made it tough. But lucky to get out of those service games throughout the whole match and got away with the win, so pretty happy about it.
Also progressing today, the top women's seed, Paddy Schneider. After losing her first set 1-6, the Swiss star fought back, targeting the baseline to wear down Queensland's Kayla McPhee. Schneider took the second set 6-4, and she was steaming to victory in the decider until calling a medical timeout for blisters on her feet. Schneider wasn't the only one feeling the heat, with McPhee also showing signs of distress. But the former world number 7 soldiered on to win the last set 6-4.
She was getting so many balls back and she made me play like 5 shots more than normal, so she has some strength.
The 39-year-old will play either Zoe Hives or Katie Dunn in the second round. And Victoria's Marinko Matosevic has reigned supreme after a mammoth 2.5-hour clash with Britain's Bryden Klein, which was decided in a third set tiebreak.
One of Hobart's favourite adopted cricketing sons says he didn't think twice about extending his contract with the Hurricanes following the side's breakout season. But for now, Darcy Short will look to improve on an underwhelming debut for Australia as the side prepares to take on England tomorrow night.
Normally painfully shy in front of the press pack, Short appears to be warming up to the idea of being a high-profile cricketer.
Everybody keeps saying I'm a hometown hero, but I embrace it. They all like to get around you and congratulate you.
Managing just 4 runs in his national T20 debut against New Zealand last Saturday night, Short will be hoping to stamp his mark on the international stage tomorrow night on the familiar Blunston Arena pitch.
Still trying to adjust to international cricket, but I'll definitely have confidence in what I've done out here throughout the last couple of weeks.
Having recently inked a new deal with the Canes, which will see him in purple for the next 3 BBL seasons, Short says the side is already looking forward to redemption following Sunday's BBL final loss to the Strikers.
Easy decision because I like coming down here and playing with all the boys, and especially after having success this year, I definitely think we can go one step further, and if not next year and the year after.
Joining the Aussies and Poms on the list of sporting teams in the state, the Collingwood Magpies touched down in Hobart today ahead of a 3-day pre-season camp at Maria Island.
We've been doing a few, non-conventional things back home in terms of our training. We've been doing things like rock climbing, and we had a singing lesson, which was very interesting.
The Pies take on last year's Super Netball League grand finalists, the Giants, in a practice match at the Derwent Entertainment Centre on Friday night.
Good evening. Hobart 25 today, Launceston 27, Burnie 24 and Devonport 23. Most temperatures between 2 and 5 above the average for this time of year. Bushy Park and Ooze our warmest with 29. Grove and Campania 28, Cressy 27, King Island 26, Strawn and Friendly Beaches 25 today, Wynyard and Flinders Island 24 and St Helens 23. All good numbers. Onshore breezes from a high brought cloud to coastal Tasmania, New South Wales and the southern part of Queensland. Troughs generated cloud over northern Queensland Queensland, and from the Pilbara right across through the Territory to the Coral Sea, another trough has more cloud over central Western Australia. Spatterings of low-level convective cloud today over most of the state, some thicker areas active over the central north this afternoon. Tomorrow, another repeat of the pattern, with the high moving slightly to the east, a cold front now over the Bight. East to north-east winds reaching 25 knots over the east in the afternoon, winds more light and variable inland. Nothing to warn you about though. The forecast for tomorrow, sunny in Hobart, 28 degrees, warming up to 29 at Geeveston and also for Bothwell. For Launceston, mostly sunny and 28, 25 for Devonport. Cressy okay as well and warm and 28 degrees. Burnie partly cloudy and 25, mostly sunny for Strawn, 27, 23 for Curry after some early fog. Partly cloudy for St Helens, 24 the top, sunny for Swansea and 25, same conditions for Orford. UV very high to extreme. On Thursday, morning showers over the west extending statewide in the afternoon. Rain in the north on Friday with showers easing elsewhere before contracting to the northeast by evening, and showers in the north to start the weekend extending statewide in the afternoon. Morning drizzle over Perth tomorrow. Hot and sunny weather for Adelaide and Melbourne. Fine and partly cloudy conditions for Canberra, Sydney and Brisbane. Conditions okay at the moment. 22 and mostly clear in Hobart, clear in Launceston too, and 24 in Devonport, currently 21 degrees. Another fine, warm, summery day tomorrow, Joe. A bit of shower activity towards the weekend though. OK, we can handle that. Thanks so much for that, Merv. That's all from the team. Have a lovely evening and we'll see you again a bit later with updates.